Okay, it is 11 a.m. So I'll call the meeting to order. And Ellen, I will ask you to go ahead and call the roll. Rachel should be joining us shortly.
Okay. Darrell Newkirk,
Here.
Rich Maston,
Here.
Rachel Anger, Kathy Calhoun,
Here.
Sharon Roy,
Here.
Steve McCullough,
Here.
Pam Moser,
Here.
Howard Webster,
Here.
Kathy Dunham,
Here.
Kenny Curley,
Here.
Yukiko Hayata,
Here.
Pam Delabar,
Here.
George Eigenhauser,
Present.
Mark Hannon,
Here.
Carol Krasnowski,
Here.
Melanie Morgan,
Here.
Annette Wilson,
Here.
Shelley Perkins,
Here.
I'm here, Shelley Borowski,
Here.
James Simbro,
Here.
Ava Chen,
Here.
Gavin Cal,
Here.
Matthew Wan.
Here.
And as Rachel says, is there anybody else in the meeting whose name I didn't call?
Me, John Kalila.
Ah, John, that's right, because we've got you down here. We thought you weren't going to be here today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rachel's here now.
Okay, she's in the meeting. Good.
Yep.
Okay, great. So the
Yep.
gang's all here.
Letting me in, sorry.
Not a problem. Ellen went ahead and did the roll call, Rachel. So
Oh, Anger
everyone-
is present.
Okay.
Yep, I've got you marked off.
Okay. Mark wanted to have the floor to bring up something.
Thank you, Daryl.
Yep.
In the notes that went out this morning on yesterday's meeting, it stated that the rules for the Grand of Distinction were extended into the new show season. I wanted to make sure everybody in our constituents understood new show season meant the current show season, not the next show season starting May 1st. All right, everybody
Okay.
agree with that? And the other thing was when we went from requiring 2 specialty rings to 1 specialty ring, there seems to be a little bit of confusion in regard to the 6x6 format shows. What the current show rule says is that at least 4 rings between the 2 shows. So I'm assuming that what we voted for yesterday is changing that to at least 2 specialty rings between the 2 shows. It's not just 1 specialty ring throughout the weekend at a 6x6. It's 2 specialty rings. And as was in the past, they don't have to be 1 specialty day one day and another specialty the other. It can be 2 specialties on one day. And the other day could be all 6 all breeds.
Okay. So that wasn't clearly stated. So Mark, I think you voted in favor of that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about we have a motion to reconsider? We can do that since this is a session. It's a second day of a session according to the bylaws. And so one person that voted in favor of it can make the motion to reconsider. So Mark, are you willing to make that?
Sure.
Okay. I need a
Steve
second.
second. Steve second.
Okay. All right. So all those in favor of the reconsideration, please raise your hands. Okay, so the motion to reconsider is George Eigenhauser. The yes votes are George Eigenhauser, Kathy Calhoun, Sharon Roy, Annette Wilson, Hayata San, Melanie, Kenny, Carol, Kathy Calhoun, I'm sorry, Kathy Dunham, Pam Moser, John Kalila, Rich Maston, Mark Hannon, Steve McCullough, Howard Webster, Rachel Anger, Pam Delabar. You'll take your hands down. Are there any no votes? Okay, I have Kathy Calhoun up for a no vote.
Oh, no, I'm not a no. I just
All
want-
right, okay,
Sorry,
okay, no problem.
trying to get more light from the camera.
Okay, any abstentions? No abstentions. Okay, so according to Robert's rules, now the motion before the vote was called is the motion that is pending. So
May I announce the vote?
yes,
for
oh
the
yes, yeah, I think it was
reconsideration?
unanimous.
Oh, yeah, it was unanimous, but officially 17 yes, 0 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
I do want to remind the board and the constituents, these are notes. And most of the notes are taken in the middle of the night. So if you have something to add or correct, let me know immediately and I put out a correction. Or somebody else can volunteer to do them.
Pam, we appreciate your work. Your notes this time were excellent, and a little levity was added, which made them even better. So, all right. So, so I need someone to make an amendment to make this motion clearly state what Mark has brought up. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, first of all, let me say it was not meant to be critical of Pam and her notes. It was just to make a clarification so everybody understood what the word next meant.
Yep.
Or new, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I move that show rule 405A be amended to state that at least 2 long hair, short hair rings between the 2 shows.
Okay. So, Shelley, can you bring up that portion of yesterday's meeting when that show rule was addressed so we can see what the motion was and what we're amending?
Okay, which show rule was it?
4.05.
All right, let me find it.
I just want it
Yeah.
up on the
Mhm.
screen so that everybody can see it so we don't make a mistake.
Yeah, I think it was I'm not sure it was section A, B, or C. It was either A or B of Monty's show rule report.
La, 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 la.
I believe it's item 6 in Monty's report.
Thank you, George.
Show rules was number 11. Okay. Give me a second. I got the show rules and then we can find it from there.
Okay.
So you think it was 6?
Correct.
Yeah,
It says amend show rule 4.06, reduces specialty ring requirements license to show.
And Rachel, are you able to see how everybody voted on that? Can you bring that up quickly?
There it is, 4.06.
there it is. That's it.
And you need the end of it,
I need where the motion is.
rationale or the motion? Okay, the
There is no
motion.
motion.
We need
It's
the
just at the
original.
very top.
Yeah. And Rachel, were you able to find how the vote went on that?
I don't have the votes. All I have are, the answer is no. I don't
Okay.
keep those individually. I've never needed to use those.
Okay, all right.
Well, until the transcription, of course.
Okay, yeah, Rich.
Well, if you need the votes, I have the yes, no's, and abstentions. I don't have who did what.
Okay, well, Mark, I just tell me what you've got, Rich.
I got 13 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
Okay, all right. Would the no person be willing to come forward?
I believe it was me,
Okay, Howard.
Howard.
Okay, I just need to know that who makes this is entitled to make the motion to reconsider. Okay, so we're reconsidering this, and Okay, and this was Sharon and Melanie who brought this forward. Okay. All right. All right. So Mark, would you mind repeating your amendment?
If Shelley would scroll down just a little bit, so we can see all of number 2. Stop.
Okay.
So where it says for shows licensed in regions 1 through 7 or China, the combination of all breed specialty or super specialty or specialty rings must include at least one specialty ring for both long hair and short hair specialties. Let me amend that to state for shows licensed in regions 1 through 7 or China, the combination of all breed super specialty or specialty rings must include at least one specialty ring, two specialty rings between the 2 shows.
I think you're supposed to be looking at paragraph 3.
That's what I'm at. That's where I'm at. Oh, 3?
Okay. Paragraph 3, and it should say where it's underlined. It says to have one specialty ring. I think you're supposed to say, you're trying to add 2 specialty rings between the 2 shows.
Correct. Okay.
In the underlined section in paragraph 3.
Okay, so my motion is what Shelley just said.
Okay. That was the easy way out.
I second.
Melanie seconds.
All right, everybody seconds. So, all right. So let me get the list of participants up here so I can. Okay. Howard, your hand is up. Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
I was one of the abstentions, and I believe that it's not right for me to impose a rule like this on my fellow regional directors in 1 through 7. So that's why I abstained. If they want this, very good.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. So we're all clear that we're amending number 3, as Shelley stated. So I'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so the yes votes are Mark Cannon, George Eigenhauser, Kenny Curley, Howard Webster, Carol Krasnowski, Kathy Calhoun, Rich Maston, Melanie Morgan, Annette Wilson, Rachel Anger, Sharon Roy, Pam Mosier, Hayata San, Steve McCullough, John Kalila. Okay, if you'll take your hands down. The no votes, please raise your hand. Okay. I don't see, let's see, hang on. So Gavin, we're voting. Did you can't vote, so.
Yeah, sorry, pressed it by mistake. Just
Okay, okay, no problem. Okay, there are no votes. Any abstentions? Pam Delabar abstains. Rachel, you can announce the vote.
Unmute.
I don't have a vote from Kathy Dunham.
I was a yes, Rachel.
Thank you.
So thanks, Kathy. That's 16 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, so the amendment is agreed to. So now we need to vote on the amended main motion here. Is there any further debate? Or are we ready for the question? Don't see any hands up, so I'll call the vote for the amended motion. Please vote yes now if you're in favor of it. So the yes votes are Mark Cannon, Melanie Morgan, George Eigenhauser, Sharon Roy, Carol Krasnowski, Rich Maston, Annette Wilson, Kathy Dunham, Kenny Curley, Pam Mosier, John Kalila, Rachel Anger, Steve McCullough, Hayata San, Howard Webster. If you'll take your hands down. Kathy, I did, okay, never mind. Anyone that voting no, please raise your hand. Oh, no votes. Any abstentions? Pam Delbar abstains. Okay, Rachel, you can announce the vote.
Thank you. This time I don't have a vote from Kathy Calhoun.
I'm a yes.
You're a yes. Thank you. That's 16 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you very much. The amended motion is agreed to. Mark, you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Okay, yep, you're very welcome. All right, let's move into today's agenda. And that's the International Division. And is Russell Webb on the call?
He's in the panelist.
Yes, he is.
He's
Okay,
in the
good deal.
attendees.
Yep,
right.
I'm going to promote him right now.
Okay.
Come in. He is here. He's on the panel.
Okay, fantastic. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning, guys. Well, good
Okay.
evening.
Okay, well, it's midnight Hayata's time, so and it's late
Hayata.
Pam's time too. So, all right, you're recognized for your report.
Okay. It's just a quick update on what's happening. I know you all read the report. As far as the annual banquet goes, all the winners were informed about the banquet. There are about 100 winners, and Eva, I think, got 20 sponsors. Which will attend on November 5th in Chengdu at the Hilton Hotel. The next thing is just an update on the Wechat. I don't know if Gavin on?
He is.
If he wants to talk a little bit about the Wechat, because basically some changes, from what I understand, had to be made with the CFA system. And we're waiting for this requirement to move forward on the Wechat. So if you have any more input, Gavin?
Yeah, so basically, we've done most of the application. And right now, James is waiting for a requirement from our side, which will specify the changes that are required on CFA's entry system. It won't be something major, but we need to sort out the requirement so both sides can communicate effectively. So that's that.
Okay.
Okay. And I don't know, Eva, do you want to make any comments? Because you're running the banquet. Okay.
没有什么，超开，你可以说。
No, she doesn't have anything to add.
Okay. So if anybody has any questions.
Yep, Kathy Calhoun has her hand up. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you, Daryl. Russell, I'm assuming, but I don't want to make that assumption, that no one from the CFA board or the committee from the United States will be attending, basically, probably because of COVID. Is that a correct assumption?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Cannon, you're recognized.
Yes, under NGO approval, the last sentence, the Shanghai filing has been delayed because of local COVID practices. I'm told that it has nothing to do with COVID practices, that the woman that was creating issues for us for the past couple of years is continuing to create issues for us in Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenyang, three of the larger cities in China, that I think the board needs to know that that's still ongoing, and it was not because of COVID.
Well, when I questioned that, that's what I was told. So, Gavin, do you know more about the situation in Shanghai?
Daryl, may I say something?
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
We may not want to talk about this in open session. I don't know how delicate the discussion is.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rich. I think if we're going to talk about a certain person and our business, our NGO approvals, it probably should be done in closed session.
Okay, then can we move that to new business in closed session then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is that okay with you, Mark and Annette?
It's fine with me.
Okay, Annette, did you have a comment to make? You're muted.
You're
Annette,
muted, Annette.
Sorry, thank you. I have a question, just kind of more of a general question.
Sure.
I noticed that the number of cats at the shows in China have been quite low. There have been a number of shows, but the entries, cats present, which is all I know about, have been like 30 to 35 to 40. Is this, I'm curious as to why that is. Is it competition from other associations? Is it COVID? Is it, are people, are the shows being advertised to exhibitors? You know, and maybe I'm just like late to the party here without understanding what all of the issues might be, but I'm just kind of curious as to why Hong Kong can get more entries in a 2-ring show than some of these clubs that are putting on shows in China where there's so many more people.
That's a good question, Annette. Gavin, you're recognized.
Yeah, so first of all, from my understanding, the shows that we see recently in China, they're around maybe 80 cats. So it's not 30 or 40. So first of all, I think 80 in the current climate is not exactly a bad number. You know, because first of all, travel is restricted. So you're more limited to the people that's close to you. So that's one. So sometimes people don't feel like flying because they're afraid that if there's some kind of outbreak, they might get quarantined, and they, you know, when they go back, or they might not be able to get back to their city. So that's one of the reasons. And also, you know, there's also the element of competition. So right now we have, I don't know how many, maybe 10, but a huge number of local associations are competing with us right now. So yeah, so that also has some kind of effect on us as well. So, but right now, I think given the fact that we have mostly T1 judges, and but most of them are single specialty, so we end up with maybe 2-3 rings, 2-3-4 specialty rings per show. I mean, 80 or 80 to 100 cat entry. You know, I think it's a normal amount to be expected.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. Mark, you're recognized.
Yeah, my understanding is there's over a dozen Chinese associations holding shows right now, but Rich had recently gotten some numbers from the central office on the entries at the shows in China because of the club sponsorship committee that he chairs. So I'd ask him to chime in on how many entries we've been getting over there.
Rich?
Yeah, I can get that information after we take a break. I can't multitask with the laptop I'm using to pull up the document.
Okay. Melanie?
I'm looking at the counts right now. For example, Dear Meow had 9 kittens, 18 in championship. Can't see what the column is. Is it 3 in premiership? Wait a minute, give me a moment. I see what you're saying, Annette. They're very, very low. I mean, it's I would be interested to see more. Here's another show, China Dragon. Looks like 33 kittens, 25 in championship, 4 in premiership. So yes, they're disturbingly low given the population and the kind of counts that we've seen in the past.
Well, I think Gavin sort of elucidated that we have had issues with people being afraid to travel to a different province or a different area of China, and then maybe getting COVID isolation procedures put into effect. And because we've had questions about if they have to be quarantined and not be able to return home, are they responsible, the club responsible, or is CFA responsible? And so I think some of the judges are refusing to fly to these areas right now with the COVID pandemic still going on. So I think that really has impacted it. But you're right. There are a lot of shows by our competitors going on. Annette?
Thank you. I appreciate Melanie's input. So Melanie and I are looking at Cats Present because that's the only information we have available. Dear Meow is actually a Hong Kong club, and I only looked at May and June entries, and I think it's interesting that the Hong Kong club can get more entries than the clubs in China. And I guess where I'm going with this is, one, are the shows being advertised? Two, we're accepting more clubs in China based on the huge population of the city where the club is sited and where they're going to put on a show. But then those are the people that you would expect to enter the show. Now, I appreciate the fact that the judges may not want to travel and get stuck somewhere, and maybe adding some additional associate judges will help that. I hope so. I just was, I guess, kind of disappointed that once shows starting up again, we'd start to see more entries there. And I do hope the clubs are advertising the shows well in advance and accepting all of the entries. And I certainly understand if people enter and then are afraid of going, that they might not go. I appreciate that. So I thank you for the discussion.
Yep. Rich?
Yeah, Daryl.
Your hand's up.
Oh, I can, once again, I can review all that if you want in closed session when we come back from the break. I just don't have that information available in front of me.
Thank you. Rachel?
Thank you. Just a reminder that the issue of judges being stuck in quarantine is coming up as an action item in our closed session report this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Gavin, Cal, you have any closing comments on this?
Yeah, so I think from my recollection, the shows I've judged the least amount of cats we had was about 50. Obviously, I'm talking about Chengdu and Chongqing, but it really depends on the club. So depending on the club that you're looking at, you might be seeing lower numbers. So, and also I just want to clarify that when I say there might be people who are concerned with getting quarantined, I'm talking about the exhibitors, right? So exhibitors, most of them, some of them are working, so they can only take the weekend off. But if they end up being in the quarantine, they'll be there for 14 days. So that's also an element that people would be deterred from entering shows because they don't want to get stuck. So, but also realistically speaking, obviously there are much more competition now than before, which we all should be anticipating by now.
Okay, thank
and
you. And
also lastly, so with the current judge slate, there's no point for stuffing. So so there's not a lot of buff number, to be honest. So it's a multitude of things that are producing this kind of show count. Okay,
thank you, Gavin. Okay, John Kalila.
Do we have any kind of count from the other show, from the other associations?
Gavin, do you or Eva have any information on that?
Oh, that's pretty.
Yeah,
Nice.
maybe let me ask Eva. 陈一东，你知不知道其他协会大概有多少猫？
其他协会其实也是看时间，有的时候他们也会有猫很少的时候，也有100-200只猫的时候，这个说不准的。但是我听说像那个 ICE 他们经常有60-70个猫，但是参赛者就只有几个，都是他们裁判自己带的。
So yeah, Eva knows more about the local shows here. So for other associations, everybody's pretty much in the same boat. All the show counts are getting divided amongst all the different associations. And to her recollection, for ICE, for example, sometimes they often, a lot of shows get 60 to 70 cats per show. But if you look at the exhibitors, they don't even have a lot of exhibitors. A lot of times the judges are putting their own cat. So they're not doing much better than we are, but we are getting affected. That's our fear right now.
Okay. All right, we can further discuss this when we go into closed session. Russell, you have anything else on your report?
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay, good deal. Thank you very much. We'll move on to order number 20, which is breeds and standards. Annette Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't have any action items. I do have a little update. It says that we have 12 ballots this year. I just received an update to the Toy Bob standard this morning. So we will add that to it. That'll be 13 breed councils and committees with ballots this year. That's, I think we're waiting on that one and one more for review and sending to central office. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Annette, for that update. So we'll move on to reports of special committees, and that's order number 21, virtual annual committee. Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Daryl. I'm going to turn it over to Aline to review.
All right, everybody has the survey results. I didn't intend on going through that because I just have a summary, and then we don't have any action items per se, but we do have some areas that we should probably discuss a little bit. So the summary, I don't think there were any surprises. Everybody was satisfied with the virtual annual, the things they liked, the convenience, not having to travel, limited no cost, not a surprise. Everybody really liked the electronic voting. So we do have some further information on some recommendations for that. They enjoyed not having as many committee reports in person, and didn't have a lot of technical challenges, surprisingly. So, if anybody has any questions while I'm giving my report, please speak up, but I'll just continue. So the recommendations that the committee has come up with. Electronic voting, that is very popular, and we recommend that we move in that direction and we can come up with a formal proposal at the December board meeting. There will be additional costs, but the return on that, everybody seems to be very happy with the accuracy of it. Just to give you an idea, we probably would use the same type of electronic voting we currently used, which would require good internet access for everybody in the meeting room. That will come at a cost to have that kind of bandwidth. And we estimate that will be about $5,000 for the day. There are other, I'm going to call them local options. They call them clicker technology, where you actually have a handheld little clicker thing and you vote yes, no, or abstain. Those are very costly. You can rent them, and there's no way to track which club voted which way. So you don't have any of the confirming emails that we send out to the club secretary and the president. We don't have any of that. So we will be looking at using the method that we used this past year. And if it is something that it looks like we're going to be continuing to use for future years, then we can look at doing an app, a voting app for this purpose, because that would be a little bit more streamlined.
Okay, Pam Mosier, you have your hand up. Is it about voting?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was reading it, I thought that you only got like 211 responses back, and 111 were favorable. So maybe I'm reading it wrong, but did I read it wrong?
Yeah, we sent out 219 requests to take the survey, and 111 actually responded.
Okay, so
that's average.
Yeah, that's not very good. I mean, to me, that's under half. And so, I mean, on the electronic voting, I guess I don't understand why, when you're all in a room, why you can't raise your hand, and it would be a whole lot easier than sitting there and trying to find a device to have to put your vote in on. But so I don't know that I agree with this, but you know, like I said, I don't know that what you got back was overwhelmingly that they want to do electronically. That could be overwhelmingly electronically if you had to do it via Zoom again.
Well, these are just options that the committee's recommending. If the board does not want us to move in that direction, then we just go back to the way we've been doing it.
Okay, Mark Hannon.
Yeah, as having served as president and chairman of that meeting, it's at best a guess as to whether something passed by 50% or 2/3. You know, you're eyeballing the crowd and hoping you're getting it right, but you really don't know. You get an actual number when what we did this past year, and so you know for a fact whether it passed or not, or whether it got the 2/3.
So does that mean you're in favor of it, Mark?
Yeah, I'm just answering Pam's response
Oh,
that
okay.
we could do it in person. We've done it in person for years. Why aren't we going to continue to do it in person? It's because it's not accurate.
Yeah, thank you. Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized.
Yeah, I would think that, in my opinion, a 50% response rate is pretty good. You know, you typically get people who don't respond, or people that probably liked it and didn't have a gripe, you know, so 50%, I would think that's pretty good. And I echo what, I've never chaired a meeting like that, but I think the accuracy level is worth the, to really seriously consider spending the money. I would just ask to make sure that come December, or that we really have a good number as to what that's going to cost, and make sure we build it into next year's budget.
Thank you, Kathy. Aline, go ahead.
Well, while we're still on this topic, I didn't have a motion, and I know we don't do straw votes, but does the board want to move in this direction? Do you want us to come back with a proposal, a formal proposal in December?
I see some head shaking. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Kenny Curley.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to have Aline and her committee explore costs concerning all of the positive things that have been presented today in this report.
George seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion on Kenny's motion? Is there any objection to Kenny's motion? Pam, are you going to object?
No, because they're just, you know, it's just to look into it. So I'm not going to object. No.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So by unanimous consent, Kenny's motion is adopted. So Aline, you can pursue that and bring it back to us in December.
Okay, great. Committee reports. Of the people that responded, they liked having just a few in-person committee reports, with the remainder being in the delegate book or published online. The board would determine the committees that would present the live reports, such as the treasurer's report. So again, this is something in the board's hand. There's really not much that we have to recommend, other than it seemed to be something everybody liked, and it should be considered.
Thank you, Mark Hannon. You're recognized.
Yeah, when we had in-person meetings in the past, the credentials committee spent all morning counting ballots and preparing their report for us. We didn't have that issue with the virtual meeting because they had done that earlier. But with a whole morning to fill somehow is why we had numerous committee reports. And I tried to limit it to the committees that had significant changes that they wanted to bring to the attention of the delegates. If it was just the same old committee going on doing the same old thing, I discouraged them from making reports. So that's just an explanation of why we're able to cut down committee reports this past year with a virtual meeting.
Which
Aline?
brings us to the election ballot counting. That was a nice lead in, Mark. Thank you. I don't have to go through what we've been doing for so many years. Everybody knows what the credentials and the tellers do. We bring the ballots, they count the ballots, takes hours. Past couple of years, because we haven't had an in-person annual, we have had an outside accounting firm come in, count the ballots. But we also have because everything is electronic and the votes are cast online, we also have a tally available to us from the online system. They match exactly. What has been hand counted by the independent accountants, by Nancy's team, and by the tally that we have available to us immediately, it matches. So the board may want to consider eliminating the physical count of the ballots in lieu of the automated count. That would save an incredible amount of time in the morning. We wouldn't have to fill time with committee reports should you decide to go in that direction. The credentials committee would, of course, still have a job. They would continue to verify the eligibility of a club to cast a ballot, which is something we do in advance of the annual meeting. And if there are any mailed in votes, of which there was only one this year, and that was the fax, they would tally that in to the automated tally and provide the final election results to the delegates as is customary. If you wanted to move in this direction, we would have to present an amendment to the bylaws.
Okay. George Eigenhauser, you're recognized.
Yeah, kind of segueing this back into the committee reports. It seems to me like a real waste of time to use committee reports to fill time while ballots are being counted. They should either be something positive and forward going, something that we actually want to hear, rather than just running in place until the ballots get counted. Going to a more electronic version of ballot counting is one option, but as Aline pointed out, that might require an amendment to the bylaws. There are alternatives, such as asking the Credentials Committee to do it the night before or do it earlier on Friday morning, so that we could still dispense with the half a day of committee reports. So it's not necessarily an either or. We could certainly reduce the number of committee reports without changing the balloting procedure to totally electronic, just move it around a little bit.
Daryl?
Yes, go ahead, Eileen.
I can't speak for the Credentials Committee, but I have a feeling based on past history that the entire Credentials Committee or tellers knowing what the results are on Thursday night would be awkward. That's a group of 19 people. So you're talking about 19 people knowing the results of the election on Thursday night. They're not going to be announced until Friday. So I'm not sure they'd want to be put in that position. I think that some of the work that the Credentials Committee does, such as verifying the ballots, is something that could be done in advance. And we have been doing that in advance. And that saves quite a bit of time. So I think probably the amount of time that they spend could be cut at least in half on counting ballots.
Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
Yeah, I would discourage having them come in even earlier on Friday. They start at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. And to do it earlier, I think is just inhumane.
Okay. Well, I think that the outside firm, independent firm counting those ballots has worked out very well for the last 2 years. And to go back to central office printing out all of those ballots and taking them and having them counted by the Credentials Committee, and this is no way a slam on the Credentials Committee, because they do an awesome job. Okay, but the computer has already tabulated those votes, and as Eileen pointed out, there has been it's been correct and it has matched. So I think the question is whether we print them out, send them in, let the Credentials Committee, as George pointed out, verify all of those, or if we amend the bylaws and go with the automated tabulated system that we have used, and those Excel spreadsheets for the regions could be sent to the committee just to I mean, Nancy has verified those for the last 2 elections. Is that correct, Aline?
Yes. And just so everybody knows, the printed ballots that we bring, and even that the independent auditors count, it's simply a printout of the confirmation that the club receives. I mean, there's nothing magical about it. It's a direct printout of that screen, is what the credentials committee has been counting, as well as the independent auditors.
Okay. So what's the board's position on this? Is there anything you want to do? Or are we going to just revert back to the old system of sending central office printing out those ballots, taking them to the annual, having the credentials committee count them? Mark, you're recognized.
That's not something I think we have to decide today. Why don't we wait until the December or February board meeting to make a final decision on this and give opportunity for input from our constituents about using the computer in the future, rather than having the credentials committee count hard copy?
Okay, that's a good idea. All right, Aline, you'll bring us back an updated report on that for the election counting at the December meeting?
I wouldn't have anything further to report. When Mark said the constituency, are you talking about having a survey, or just regional directors asking, or how do you want to get that feedback?
Mark?
Well, I'm open to how to do it. I assume Pam's going to put it in her notes for today's board meeting, which alerts everyone that gets the CFA news notices that we're looking for input on this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that can be put in bold, Aline.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kenny?
We can, most regions, if not all, have websites. We can certainly bring that question to bear.
Okay, thank you. All right, Aline, you're recognized.
If you'd like, I could write up a brief summary of the electronic voting ballot counting and send out to each of the regions to put on their website if you want.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Great. And I think if we bring this back in December, Nancy Dodds, who chairs that credentials committee, should be invited to give the board input.
Okay. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, order number 22, George Eigenhauser, COVID-19 committee.
Let me start by saying I had really hoped this committee would have worked itself out of a job by now. But we had an incident in September. You're all familiar with it, and I tried to be as vague as possible in the report, where there was a positive test result for COVID following a cat show. The show manager reached out for some help in notifying exhibitors and other participants. Rich and Aline and I, because this was really time sensitive, just did a quick down and dirty notice, which is attached to the end of the report. And the idea was to send this to the COVID-19 committee for further discussion and to come up with a better wordsmithed version of the notice. But the question came up, is this even what the board wants? Does the board want us to set up a procedure whereby CFA would assist clubs who have some sort of exposure to get notice out? The thought was, in my mind, yes, but some of the committee members suggested that maybe this was something that we should just leave to state and local government and not do anything at all. I personally happen to disagree with that. I think that when clubs need help, CFA should step in and help. I think that's part of our responsibility as CFA. And also we could provide additional notice in addition to whatever any state or local requirements may be. There are tons of forms out on the internet these days, companies that are sending out notices that, we had an exposure and so we're notifying our employees, or we had an exposure so we're notifying event participants. So I think the core question, and it's in the form of a motion, do you want the committee to come up with a policy in a sample form, or is this something you want to leave to clubs to either work on their own or work out in conjunction with the local government. So just to get the discussion started, as we have something to talk about, I move we accept the one action item.
Rich will second.
Okay, thank you. All right. Pam Delabar, your hand's up.
There, I wanted to see the action item. I asked at my Zoom meeting about notification. Now, yes, people want to be notified, especially when, cross-country borders. I've got people going from Germany to Monaco to Spain, wherever, all over. We have in several of the countries, if you can see, this is a COVID exposure app that we have in Finland. We don't have that in all countries. And I know most places in the US don't have it. I think we need to have this. The exhibitors I talk to would be happy to be notified if they, because then they would know to watch for anything or to go in and get a test, 72 hours after the show or whatever. I think this is a service that we can provide our constituents.
Thank you. Melanie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Daryl. And I may be overreacting, but I hope you'll understand where I'm coming from. First of all, I support the creation of a policy and a support system for our exhibitors, but I think that the scope needs to be expanded. The situation we experienced on September 11th is one that we should be prepared to handle proactively. And because of the nature of our activities, impacted individuals aren't necessarily limited to the attendees at that actual September 11th show. Our judges have contact in one way or another with nearly every exhibitor in a show in every show weekend. As they handle each of their cats, the cats go back to the exhibitors, etc. And as such, they become potential vectors. Because we have no restrictions on attending shows, much like GCCF says that you have to go, I think, every 14 days or whatever that is. We don't have corresponding restrictions like that. The show the following weekend falls well within current incubation periods, as far as I understood from what the pundits are saying. I definitely received a number of concerned calls and emails from exhibitors who attended the show the following weekend, September 18th. For the judges on the Saturday slate, September 18th officiated at September 11th show, where there was a positive COVID result. And the exhibitors at September 18th show received no official notification of the positive COVID test. The judges, although we had people who were very upfront about what had gone on in social media, et cetera. At any rate, the judges in questions didn't mask, they didn't social distance. There were lots of pictures of them taken arm in arm with exhibitors. So there were a number of exhibitors who felt like, and I quote from one of the calls I received, that they were, quote, being set up, end quote. That doesn't need to happen if we take charge and set up protocols, which is what I think our COVID committee is trying to do. So I'd like us to address possible guidelines for judges and procedures for COVID positive situations. And again, that follows my support here. My thoughts would be that we should consider, one, requiring a negative COVID test for judges who judge consecutive weekends, and mandatory mask wearing / social distancing when they're in the ring, or two, requiring a negative COVID test for any judge who judged a show where there was a confirmed positive, along with mandatory mask wearing and social distancing. There may be people who are vehemently against COVID testing for judges. I think then that we might want to consider just the mandatory mask wearing for the judges who judge on consecutive weekends. So I understand I may be stretching here and I may be overreacting, but it's important to consider all the aspects. So in addition to the risk for exhibitors and ring help, there's the unknown of transmission between species. There's some evidence pointing to the fact that big cats, at least, have been exposed to and get COVID from their handlers. So if that's possible for domestic cats as well, then theoretically an exposed judge who is maskless could be putting every cat they handle at risk. None of the cats have been vaccinated. We might have been, but they haven't. So truly, it may be inconvenient for our judges. It may not even be all that useful. It might be overkill, but isn't it better to err on the side of caution and protect our exhibitors and cats while still moving forward with our shows? So I just want to throw that out there for discussion. And of course, I support what George is proposing here. Sorry to go on so long.
Thank you. Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
If we require COVID testing for judges or for anyone, if we require it, we should pay for it. In my case, if I get a PCR test, that costs 169 euros. Now, the prime rate, I can tell you it's over $175. If that's required, as I said, if it's required, then CFA, if CFA requires it, CFA should pay for it.
Thank you. Carol Krasnowski, you're recognized.
Yes, I just want to, I think it's important to note that there were also exhibitors at that September 11th show that were exhibiting also at the September 18th show. So it goes beyond just the judges. There may have been clerks involved too. I don't know that in both shows, but I'm not aware of that. I do support what George is recommending.
Thank you. George Eigenhauser.
Yeah, on some of the issues involving judging, I'm not really sure how much this crosses over with the judging program committee. So I just want to point out that, you know, their input into this would be welcome as well. I agree with a lot of what Melanie said, but at this point, if we could just vote on this motion, and if people want to add additional items for discussion by the committee, I certainly have no objection to having that discussion, but I'd like to focus on just the motion on the floor.
Okay, Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized. Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted to comment on Pam Delabar's comment about CFA paying for judges if we require COVID testing. I would agree that if we require it, we should pay for it. Now, in most cases in the US, and I don't know about other countries, but insurance companies it's free. If you have insurance, you just provide your insurance card and there's no charge for COVID testing. Most insurance that I think in the United States, that's universal. I don't know how that might work in other countries. And I guess that might be a question. Do we have, with the CFA insurance, is there any policy or program that would cover judges in COVID testing? And that might be a question. Maybe Rich could ask the carrier at an alternate time.
Okay. Rachel Anger, you're recognized.
Thank you. You know, to me, this action item is just to proceed with coming up with something. If we adopt the action item, I'll certainly poll the judging program committee sub-chairs and we'll give a unified response as far as what our input will be from that committee. So we're definitely participating, but up until now, there hasn't been a need, but we definitely will. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Kathy Donham, you're recognized.
Yeah, just as a clarification, I don't know about any other portion of the United States, but here in the Midwest, the free testing has pretty much ceased. And the only way that tests are being done is if you can prove that you were exposed. So there is some consideration to that. And I agree with what George is proposing, but if we move forward to add additional requirements, that's something to keep into consideration. Some areas are not doing the free testing any longer, and you have to prove that you were exposed to be able to have a test done. Thanks.
Thanks. Pam Delabar, you're recognized for a second time.
Thank you. Just for Kathy's clarification, it's $195.90 if I want the test. If I'm exposed and have been told I'm exposed to COVID, I go in and it's free. So there's two different criteria for the COVID testing. But as Kathy said, and I was just in Illinois a few weeks ago, at that time down in the Springfield area, they could get free tests. But now from what my sister is telling me, no, they don't.
Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized for a second time.
Yeah, just for a real quick one. I can only provide what I've been exposed to. And in the Chicago area, you can still get a free test. There is a question there. And one of the questions is, do you think that you had been in an environment where 6 foot social distancing was, that you could not consistently apply that 6 foot social distancing? That it was be a yes, and it's a yes that you can get a free COVID test.
I think this is all controlled by state health departments.
I see, yeah.
And that right there is, the driving force. The other issue to consider is many times our judges are flying out of their home state to another state. And so that has to be worked out, is, which state department is going to get notified. And so if you test positive, your local health department is going to contact you, and they're going to tell you what you have to do. So, Rich.
Thank you, Daryl. What I'd like to do is just remind the board that the motion that's in front of us is to create a policy for notification for somebody who tests positive after attending a show. What I would encourage all the board members to do is send George and I your suggestions, so we don't go on any further with all kinds of ideas and take up a bunch of time this morning. Send us your ideas, and we will bring them all to the COVID committee team, and we'll review them, and then we'll report back to the board in December what the committee decided to do with them. So if we can just stick with the motion here, would be helpful. Thank you.
That'd be great. Let's go ahead and call the vote. Okay. Is there any objections to anyone object to George's motion? Okay, I see no objection. So by unanimous consent, George's motion is adopted. Let's go on to number 23, Kathy Dunham, the Interclerk Enhancement Committee.
Thank you. The report has been provided. A couple of things to point out. James alluded to it in yesterday's meeting, that Dick Kalmeyer is working on a standalone master clerk program. It looks like a very promising program. We're very excited about it. And he is planning on beta testing it in November and December, hopefully to have additional information to bring back after that. The big thing that we are concentrating right now is a cleanup of the entry clerk information databases. And part of that cleanup is due to the fact that there is lots of duplicate information in there. Some entry clerks enter the information without even knowing that some is already there, or they try to make changes and the change doesn't go through correctly. So that means new information has to be entered. We'd like to clean all that data up. And we had hoped that it was an easy process, that we could just have Dying Edge download the databases and let the committee clean it up and upload it again. That is not the case, because it is integrated into each other to make the entire program and the databases searchable for the entry clerks. So to that end, we are hoping that the board will allow us the funding to be able to move forward with this database cleanup. It is part of the process to the end result that James alluded to, that we could connect the entry clerking program to the CFA databases to be able to check accuracy of data, which would eliminate potential changes in the show hall for the judges and for the exhibitors to have to do corrections. So to that end, I make a motion to approve DynaEdge to clean up the entry clerk databases for a cost of $11,000.
Steve, second.
Thank you, Steve. Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Yeah, Kathy, thank you for that review. I just wanted to get a clarification from James. Is this not in the current year's budget?
No, not really.
Oh, well, not really, and no.
Well, that amount of money, I mean, if it was like a couple $1,000s, you know, like kind of like the enhancement we did, we could take that out of the fund for maintenance. But which this may ultimately be only a couple $1,000 job. Really don't know at this point.
Okay, 'cause the reason for my question is if it's already in the budget, we don't need the motion. If it's not in the budget, then we do need the motion. That's the reason for the question.
Okay. I would feel better asking for the money just because of the unknown.
I'm okay with that then.
Yeah.
Okay, George, you're recognized.
Maybe I'm just being dense and not getting it. My understanding is the ultimate goal in this is to have no entry clerk database, that what we're ultimately going to have is they're going to punch in an entry. It's then going to compare it to CFA's records to determine if it was accurately entered and all the information is correct. Why are we still having an unofficial database for the entry clerks that isn't the CFA database? Does that question make any sense?
Yep. Kathy, could you answer George's question?
Yes, George, it does make sense. Part of the reasoning is there are still cats that would not be potentially in the CFA databases, such as unregistered kittens, cats that are being registered via TRN numbers. Those potential cats are not registered, so they're not in the main database. They have to live somewhere until they are actually registered for entry into shows. That's one thing. And the way James explained it, and James, please jump in here, is that even though we are checking everything against the CFA database, we are not actually using the information we are not actually using that database to populate the entry clerking system. Am I right, James?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things going on. One, we've got, they're two distinct systems. They're written by different companies that wrote them. We've got our in-house system, which is managed by Sonnet. Dynamic Edge wrote the standalone entry clerk program, which just uses its own standalone database. Now that we've used it for a number of years, all of that historical data from past shows and entries and stuff, you have to keep that live, or else you're just going to be throwing away all that data. So you got to have that link. That's why we couldn't just say, oh, this is a duplicate, delete it. Well, that duplicate could be tied to actual real data, and if you ever wanted to go back and look at that for historical purposes or statistics, it would be gone. Even going forward, when you're entering a cat into the entry, you will still have to record the entry. That entry will be a copy of the data that's on CFA's database. And that's what we're looking to do, is make sure that the data between the two tables or databases, you want to call it, are in sync to minimize having to do corrections and finding errors.
Okay, Annette Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you. I guess my question is, if the money is spent, however much it costs, and the databases are cleaned up, what process will there be to keep it cleaned up on a going forward basis, up and until it's linked to the new system?
James, you want to answer that?
Sure. I was seeing if Kathy was going to dive in. I think now the entry clerks have used the system for a number of years now, and some proper training, we could probably minimize the duplication. Also, I think there's also some talk of doing some additional logic checks in that process, so that it will warn the user that, hey, this cat already exists over here or something like such. So there's some mechanisms that could be put into place.
Aline, you're frantically raising your hand, so I'll go ahead.
Well, and first I just realized I can raise my hand now. I didn't know that, but
okay,
anyway,
cool.
I did have a comment. In listening to the conversation, there is redundancy, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have two databases. Ideally, the entry clerk would be able to match to our database right away, download the information, and just have a more streamlined process. So, James and I haven't really talked about it much. Why don't you give us an opportunity, along with the Entry Clerk Enhancement Committee, that we discuss this and come back in December with a further information, because it's certainly a valid point. If we spend $11,000 to clean up this database, well, could that have been $11,000 we could put towards having a better system all along?
Okay, Gavin, you're recognized.
Yeah, I just want to resonate what Annette said. So, I think for 11,000 for cleaning up the database, that's fine. But I think we need to put in a logic check to ensure that new entries will not produce duplicate. And it's, should be some kind of unique identifier to do that. But and this must be to me, it should be a hard requirement in this edition, because we cannot rely on people or people's operations to ensure everything goes smoothly. I've done the entry clerk myself, so I've used the system. So right now, the logic, obviously, you are able to create duplicates, and if the system allows it, it will happen. So we don't want to, in a few years, end up trying to spend another $11,000 to work, clean up the same problem. So my recommendation would be to fix this issue once and for all. So the logic check should be mandatory.
Okay, thank you. Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
Considering this is a 5 figures cost, and I don't think dynamic edge is part of anything the CFA has, does this reach the realm of contracts?
So, James, you want to answer that?
I'm not sure I could answer that now.
Okay. Aline, you have an answer?
We don't have a contract per se with them, but they certainly maintain this entry clerk software for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I will chime in. We do changes are made at our request. When they get to be large changes, we would ask for a quote of time, and and go from there. We wouldn't just say just do it. I know that there are some. I think Tim Schreck has alluded that he may even have a list of some changes that they've been wanting to make for a while now. So we may be rolling some of those changes into this cost of $11,000 to put these checks and balances in, archive the data. It's not. I don't think this money is looking to just strictly do the archiving or the cleaning up of the database.
Hey, Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Yeah, I have maybe a couple questions and some comments here. So James, you just mentioned that this may incorporate a few other things than the clerking program. Is that correct?
Possibly. I'm not aware of what other changes have been requested.
Okay.
That's something I would need to get with Tim with.
So can we, so Aline, you had recommended that you get with James and you try to fine tune this number. This 11,000 is just an estimate, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not sure that the board should be comfortable calling the question on this and voting in favor until we have a more comfortable number. The other question I had, and I think somebody touched on it earlier, is yesterday, James, you talked about a full revision or an update or conversion. And we should get into that some other time on a further discussion because the numbers you're throwing around were pretty big.
Yeah.
If you go ahead and make the update to this program and any other programs, does that mean we've got to rewrite all the work that's being done on these programs for the conversion or upgraded system?
No, in relationship to the entry clerk program, no, that wouldn't affect that. One of the things that we put into place for the Wechat app is something we will probably actually use for the entry clerk program. So we've already spent that money and that technology's there.
Okay, very good. So
yeah,
I'm
now integrating show entries where somebody could go into eCat and enter their cat and have it talk to the entry clerk database or entry clerk system. There's going to be some cost, and that's something we would want to do as part of the revision.
So if that's the case, is that going to make this new program, the updates, obsolete? Will they be able to talk to one another?
They'll be able to talk to one another, but no, the changes like the checks and balances that even Gavin said we should have, those would need to be done regardless.
Okay, so I still think we need to wait on this until December until we have more information on the actual cost and what all is included in this.
Okay, Aline and I do have a meeting next week with, we have a new representative for the Dynamic Edge, and this is one of the things we could talk to them about and maybe get a firmer cost on what cleaning up the database would entail.
Anything else, Rich?
Great. Find your tires at Midas.com.
Rich?
I'm done.
Okay,
Thank you.
you don't want to proceed? You want to make a motion to table this till December?
If it's not withdrawn, I'm just going to vote no on it right now.
Okay, thank you. John Kalila, you're recognized.
Well, I'm suggest, I'm probably got a lot of people not going to be very happy about this. I would like to see us, before you enter a show, all cats, even kittens, must have a registration number. Then this will eliminate all the problem because the minute you hit, then we can change the entry card program to hit the database from the CFA database and just pull the information out. That'd be the easiest way to solve the solution and eliminate all kinds of problems. That's all I'm suggesting.
Thank you. Mark Cannon, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'm concerned. Yesterday, James talked about doing a whole rewrite of our IT structure at potentially $500,000. Why can't this be rolled into that? Why do we have two separate contractors? It would seem to me that going forward, once we have the new IT structure and whatever language it is, C+ or whatever, that it would be simpler to have everything under CFA's control with the one contractor.
Okay, Kathy Dunham.
I'm withdrawing the motion.
Okay. And who was the second?
Steve.
Thank you. You okay with the withdrawal?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion's withdrawn. Gavin, you have your hand up. Did you have something else to say? No, okay. All right, Kathy, anything else on your committee?
No, thank you.
All right, good deal. All right, so the next orders 24 virtual cat competition committee. Iris Sink, is Iris available?
Let's see, no, she's not here.
Yeah, Daryl, I'm not sure she's available. She was going to be in flight coming back from a show.
Oh, okay. All right, so you're going to present her committee report?
Yes. We have no action items, so unless somebody has a question about the report itself, it just needs to stand as is.
Okay, good deal. Any questions, anyone? Melanie Morgan?
Hi, and I know we don't have any action items. We're trying to move forward, but it struck me as we were looking at all these committee reports and specifically this one, that We have a ton of committees out there who have volunteers who willingly commit hundreds of hours of their time to help move CFA forward. And this one was really no exception. It's a totally new program. And I think it's a program that has a lot of merit even as we continue our regular shows. So I want to take this opportunity to commend Iris for the excellent job she's done managing and promoting this very valuable program for CFA. It's not easy to put a whole new program in place. And she's really risen to the occasion. So just kudos to Kathy and to Iris for that.
Okay.
Thank
good
you.
deal.
I will pass that along.
Thank you. All right. So that concludes our reports of special committees. We'll move on to unfinished business and general orders. Are there any unfinished business items to bring forward? No. Okay. Any other committee reports? You can scroll down. There you go. I see no other. And we have new business. And I will recognize Rachel.
Thank you. If you'll give me just a moment where I can switch screens here and scroll down. The Hong Kong Pet Show is coming back in Hong Kong in February of 2022. The same as before, they will host the show in conjunction with this big event, and we'll have a fun show that goes with it besides the regular CFA show. And they're hoping to recruit more newbies to our Cat Fancy is what they say. So they would like to seek board approval before they proceed. They're having it at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibit Center. If you all recall that phenomenal facility that we've attended, the sponsor is the Hong Kong Black Cat Club. And I'm sure you all know Phoebe Lowe that this came from. The CFA show will be 2 rings on Saturday, February 12th, judged by Suki Lee and Kit Fung. It's a super specialty and a household pet ring, and the entry limit is 225 entries. The fun show is Sunday, the 13th. They'll have non-pedigree cats there at the convention center, and Suki and Kit are going to be the presenters, along with 2 experienced local breeders. There will be 4 rings in total, 100 entries at the fun show. Our approved judge administrator Vicky Nye has already approved Suki and Kit to officiate at the fun show. So I would like to make a motion that the Hong Kong Black Cat Club be allowed to host a fun show on February 13th, 2022 in HongOng.
Kathy Calhoun seconds.
Okay. Do we have a copy of this that we can screen share?
Sure, I can send you, I'll send to Shelley what I received from Suki.
Yep.
Or I'm so
Phoebe,
sorry, what I
Phoebe.
received from Phoebe.
Yep.
It'll take me just a second.
Okay. The option would be Shelley could allow you to screen share.
And there it goes.
Okay. All right.
She should have it up in just a minute, but
Okay.
in any event.
I agree, but I just would like to see it up on the screen so that everybody can see what we're voting on.
Of course. And while we're waiting, for those of you who have not been to the Hong Kong Convention Center, back in when we first made an appearance in Hong Kong, it was not unusual to have 80,000 spectators through a day. And if you want to talk about a sea of cameras and deafening camera shutter clicker going on, it was just like being a rock star, I got to tell you. So for those of you that have shared that experience with me or attended that show, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. And of course, they're trying to bring that back. The fancy in Hong Kong has really exploded, and we have a tremendous amount of competition there. So I'm real proud of Phoebe and the Black Cat Club, and of course Suki and Kit for all the work that they're doing, and Phoebe's team. And there's her proposal there on the screen for you.
Yep. Thank you very much for sending that, Rachel. And Suki and Kit are the only 2 CFA judges that are judging in Hong Kong, and they're judging almost every weekend. So they are doing yeoman's work, keeping CFA alive and keeping cat shows alive. So let me get okay, I don't see any hands up. Anybody have any comments on the approval of this? Okay, any objections? Okay, seeing no objections by unanimous consent, this proposal is approved.
Thank you,
Rachel.
everyone. I'll let Phoebe know right away.
Okay, good deal. Okay, Kenny Curley, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. It's been suggested to me, perhaps we can use our regions as a additional method to reach our constituents concerning these DNA test kits that we're advertising. And what I'd like to propose is for each region to receive one optical selection smart breeding test kit, as well as one basic health and trait DNA panel, so that they can use them as a fundraiser, much like we do raffles at a show, to make those that may not be aware of CFA news of what's going on as an enhancement. This would cost CFA a total of $1,304.91 to be able to provide this with 9 regions. And I would make a motion as such, so that CFA can get these out to the regions, or at least have them available to distribute as a fundraiser.
Anyone want to second that?
Kathy will second.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right. Eileen, you're recognized.
Yeah, I think we should talk with Roger, or maybe you already did, Kenny. I'm not sure that there are things that we can just send out to people. It's the ordering, I guess we could. The ordering process usually starts with the person wanting the DNA, and then they will deal directly with the company. So I'd prefer that if the board wants to do this, that you let us work out the details.
Absolutely, I was certainly going to count on you, Eileen.
Okay.
All right, Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
This is going to sound strange, but I swear it's the truth. Different countries in Europe have different criteria for raffles. If I hold one in Finland, then I have to give people, if they buy $1 or a euro ticket, then they must get at least something in return for that. There's no DNA optimal selection test kit, and then nothing else. We haven't had raffles in Europe because of these different rules. So I would have to study how to do this, because it just would not be feasible right now.
Okay, George Eigenhauser, you're recognized.
Yeah, first, if Pam wants to work out kind of a different arrangement for Europe, I'm fine with that. I don't think it has to be a raffle. I think the regions can deal with them in whatever way works best for that region. I think that's part of why we're doing this regionally, is to let the regional directors decide. But I have a question. Would this be useful for the ID?
I don't mind adding that, George. I have no problem with it at all.
I would like to add the ID to this as well.
Okay, so George, you're making an amendment to add the ID?
Yes.
Okay, I need to.
I'll accept
Okay,
that
and
amendment.
Kenny's, okay. All right, is there any debate on the amendment to add the ID? I don't see any hands up. Any objections to adding the ID to this motion? Okay, seeing no objections by unanimous consent. Okay, Kathy Calhoun, your hands up.
Oh, my comment was just not in adding the ID, just in the administration of how we would do this.
I'm not clear.
Okay.
Okay, so what we would do is we would ask for, there's no budget for this. So it'd be a budget increase under the donations category. And let's say you said it was 1,300 before the ID. So let's say
Now would be $1,459.86.
So just as an amendment to the motion or whatever, that this would be an increase of $1,500 to the donation budget.
Okay, all right, good deal. I think Kenny's okay with that
Yeah, I'm fine with
addition?
that.
So am I.
Okay, all right. So any objections to the amendment? Okay, seeing no objections, the amendment is agreed to. So now we have a Kenny's motion, which has been amended. And that's to include the ID and up the dollar amount to about $1,500. Is there any debate? Is there any objection? Seeing no objection by unanimous consent, the amended motion is agreed to. Thank you, Kenny. All
Thank
right.
you.
Is there any other business before we adjourn? Okay, I see no hands up. Let's see. So we're 15 minutes ahead of time. And so we are going to come back at 1:30 in an executive session. Okay. All right. This meeting is adjourned.